Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Inside Pima County with Supervisor Rex Scott. And we are pleased to have with us the head of our regional wastewater department, Jackson Jenkins. Jackson, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Hey, we always like to start these interviews by asking our guest, what was your professional path that led you to being the director of your...
Boy, that's a tough question right there. How does anyone end up in wastewater? But just let me tell you, I am a Tucson native. I was born and raised here in Tucson, and I'm a graduate of my engineering degrees from the University of Arizona.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Catalina High School for 2 years.
Okay.
And then we moved out to Sahuarita, where I finished high school in Sahuarita.
All right. Very cool. Well, I will tell you only because you mentioned those two schools that I was in Sahuarita yesterday, and one of the people who I was meeting with was Dr. Valenzuela, their superintendent. He and I taught together at a junior high school in another district for 3 years back in the 90s when we were both starting out in education. And for 5 years of my career, I was the principal at Catalina.
Yeah, I was there many, many years ago, so very good. And so after my engineering degree is in metallurgical engineering, which is mine processing, and I was in the copper mining industry. And so that's how I started. And one of the newer technologies in copper mining was solvent extraction electrowinning, a hydrometallurgical process. And believe it or not, it is so similar to what we do in wastewater. There's just a little more biology in the treatment of wastewater. So it was actually a good fit and a good transition. But I spent over 20 years in the copper mining industry, and now in the private sector, and now over 20 years in Pima County wastewater in the public sector.
What were some of the roles that you had within the department, Jackson, before you became our director?
So when I started here in Pima County in wastewater in 2004, and I was hired as the deputy director for the treatment division. And I did that for about 6 years. And then I became the director in 2010.
Wow.
And I've been doing that for 16 years.
You've got to be, when I think about the department directors in the county, you've got to be one of the longest serving directors.
I've been told I am the longest right now.
How about that?
So I believe that's probably a true story.
Well, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
We are unique, correct me if I'm wrong, amongst Arizona's counties in terms of the operations of your department, everything that it's responsible for. Talk to us about that uniqueness and also the general scope of the work you and your team do.
So Pima County is the only county in the state that operates and maintains a wastewater utility. So that's the novelty, for our organization. We are a department of 400 employees, and we have 7 wastewater treatment facilities around the county. We have over 3,500 miles of sewer pipelines in the county. Yeah, I think we have 24 or 25 pump stations. Most all of the sewer flows by gravity from all parts of the county, but a few geographically challenged areas, they have to pump it a little ways to get it up higher, and then it gravity flows at one of the 7 facilities, depending on what part of town you're in.
Where are the 7 facilities located, Jackson?
So our largest facility is called Tres Rios, and it's located right there near Interstate 10 and Ina Road. In fact, right next to Sports Park over there. The large facility we have is called Agua Nueva. It replaced the old Roger Road facility that has been shut down now about 13 years, and that was a 1951 vintage, one of the early wastewater plants, and it originally was under City of Tucson responsibility. They handed over all of their wastewater infrastructure. The city did back in like 1978, 79. It became, part of getting funding from the EPA for the ever-changing regulations. They said, we'll find money for you, but we would like you to be one sewer entity and not, broken down into different groups. So that's kind of how that happened. But after the Agua Nueva facility. Then we have 5 smaller facilities, and we have the Green Valley facility down south. We have the Abra Valley facility out in the western part of our jurisdiction. We have Corona de Tucson, a little more out to the east side. We have a little facility up on Mount Lemon. And then we have a lagoon system out in Aravaca Junction, even further south, right at the Pima County, Santa Cruz County line. So those make up our primary facilities.
Are there any new facilities that are planned?
Great question. Right now, we are working on plans for a future new plant in the Sahuarita area that would allow us to shut down the Green Valley facility, which has got a number of years on it. So we're either going to have to reinvest significant money for expansion and rehabilitation out there, or move it a little bit north to our site in the Sahuarita area and build it there, because it will allow us to help better accept future growth by gravity without having to put in a pump station to pump flows. And that facility right now is just in the early stages of hiring consultants to help us get ready, hopefully for a 2031 startup for the new facility. And like I said, we would shut down the Green Valley facility. We would shut down the Aravaca Junction lagoon system. We would start taking a larger portion of the town of Cerrita's flow. They do have a small plant. There are 2 other small plants in the same regional area that we serve, and one of them is in the town of Sahuarita and Rancho Sahuarita. And their longer-term plans will probably be to shut that facility down and send all the flow to the county. But in the interim here, they will run that plant for some period longer, and much of the area that was in the part of their service area, they're going to hand over to go to this new plant in Sahuarita. And then we also likely in the longer term would shut down our Corona de Tucson plant, because it could also flow to the Sahuarita facility. We'll shut down a number of plants, and we're having conversations with the Tohono O'odham Nation about, they have the casino on Pima Mine Road at Interstate 19. They may be interested in shutting down their little system there, which will not only get them out of having to deal with that. Sometimes they're a hassle, but it would allow them to shut that down and provide them opportunities for growth if they were looking to do that in that area.
So here's a question that I would bet is in the minds of our listeners and viewers. How does a sewage system work? I mean, from beginning to end, if you will.
That's one of the great mysteries of the world. And I have to say this story, but there was, in fact, my daughter's a doctor, and we always talk about little things she reads in medical journals. But one thing was, there was like a quiz that they gave new doctors and asked them, in the past 100 years, what's the most significant breakthrough or improvement in the medical field that has increased the longevity or life of humans here? And some people think of some medical procedure or antibiotics or different things, but it actually, the answer to the question was wastewater treatment.
Wow.
Because so many people die from places that don't have treatment,
cholera,
and the risk of all the serious issues that you can get when you don't treat the sewage. And so I guess I lost my train of thought here.
You were talking about the conversation with your daughter and what a boon to mankind sanctioned wastewater systems are.
Yeah, thanks. So with that being said, we basically we act like Mother Nature when we treat wastewater. The goal is to take something that's not desired and really considered. It starts with the term waste, but we look at it anymore as it's not really wastewater. It's a resource that has a lot of value, because we treat wastewater, and I'll explain the process in just a moment. But we generate clean water that's used for reclaim. It's used for environmental restoration or developing environmental areas for benefits. Like we now discharge a lot of our effluents along the Santa Cruz River, and it's a riparian habitat galore with wildlife, dragonflies, and all kinds of things. But we take water to a very high reuse purpose. It's used to irrigate golf courses and ball fields and medians. We also, in the wastewater industry, there's two things. We call them number one and number two, and I'll let you determine what those are. But we basically take, the liquid and make a clean water product, and then we take the solids and we make them safe enough to use in the agriculture industry. And all of our biosolids currently are land applied in the agriculture industry as fertilizer. We also, in the past 5 years, have been making a biogas, which is a byproduct of the solids treatment digestion process. And we take a dirty biogas and convert it to a very, very pure methane, and we inject that into the Southwest Gas Pipeline, and it's sold as a renewable energy source. And it actually has been bringing the department almost $5 million a year in revenue. Wow. Which is a very nice, component. Between water and fertilizer and a renewable energy source, that's what we do with the wastewater to make it very amenable to going back into the, general population. But even now, we're working very closely with Tucson Water on what they now refer to as advanced water purification, and that's taking the liquid, the water, or effluent as we call it, and taking it from a high quality reclaimed, reused water into drinking water. Previously, the state had a moratorium where they wouldn't let you take effluent or wastewater water and convert it into drinking water. That goes way back in probably many iterations of why that was. But there are a number of places in the world that do take wastewater to drinking water. They're forced to. And with what's going on in the Central Arizona Project and the Colorado River, we may have to as well. And Tucson Water is trying to get ahead of that by putting in a 2.5 million gallon per day drinking water plant. And we're working with them because the state just recently, just last year, removed the moratorium, and it's now allowable to go to the drinking water with wastewater. And we have to work together because all the different unit processes for treating or cleaning the water have to be in place. Technology is very solid. There's all kind of technologies that work nowadays. I guarantee you when the astronauts go up in space, they all don't take millions or thousands of bottles of water with them. They recycle, what they have up there. Sure. And so we could do it as well. And Tucson Water has a grant to do that in also, I think it's 2031, where hopefully they'll have that in place. And so, like I said, what we do is in wastewater, the real summary of the process is we take what comes in through the pipeline, and the first thing we do is we screen it because, of course, wastewater, there's organics, there's number one and number two that, we have to treat. But there's also an occasional Hot Wheel car or a pet turtle or, who knows what gets flushed down the toilet and things that shouldn't be flushed down the toilet. And when they come to us, we separate out the inorganic from the organic. We rinse it off, clean it up, and it gets landfilled, basically. But then we separate the two streams by gravity, basically, and we take the liquid stream one direction in the process to go through a biological process that basically remove nutrients. The main one is ammonia. And we come in, I think the wastewater typically is maybe between 40 and 50 parts per million or milligrams per liter of ammonia. And we clean it up to where typically less than 2, 3, but well below the limit so that it can be discharged and it's safe. And so that's one of the key things that we do. And of course, it's disinfected and we use primarily bleach, but a couple of our facilities do use ultraviolet light. But we go through all these steps to make sure that water can then be used for irrigation or recharge or repairing habitat. Then the solid side, also, they go their own path in the treatment process, and we make them safe so that they can be land applied for agriculture fertilizer. And there's a very formal set of regulations of how and what you can do and when and where you can use it.
Are those federal or state regulations or both?
They're both. Okay. They're both. And so that, wastewater treatment is, in my mind, we're doing Mother Nature on steroids. We're helping create the biological environments to accelerate the process.
That's a great description.
Yeah.
And we talked primarily, Jackson, about what happens when wastewater gets to one of your facilities, but there's got to be thousands of miles of pipe that go into each one of, all of those facilities. How is that system maintained? And how do you know when you need to replace a line?
Yeah, that's another great question. And so one of the divisions in our department is the conveyance, and they're responsible for the 3,500 miles of sewer.
3,500
sewer pipeline. So that's to New York for back. That's a long way. And basically, the sewer, like I said, most of our sewers are gravity flow, and so we're very important in the utility. A water pipeline is pretty easy. You can put it how you want to, run it where you want to, because it's under pressure to get water from point A to point B. But to get sewer by gravity from point A to point B, you have to have a fairly straight shot and a fairly continuous, appropriate slope to let everything flow, because you don't want to have to pump it at the high cost if you have to do that. And so in order to do that, you want to make sure the pipeline remains clean. And sometimes people put things in the sewer they shouldn't. And one, I'll put a plug in right now, is grease, oils, and fats. We call it FOG, fats, oils, and grease. And they cool down in the sewer system. We take people to dump grease down the drain, put it in a container in the trash, and let landfill it. But when you get buildups of grease or things, they can block your sewer, and other things will start building up around them. They also, sewer roaches love fats, oils, and greases. So we always have a campaign to try and keep things that shouldn't be in the sewer out of there. But the guys are responsible, the teams are responsible for going through, and basically they have two main pieces of equipment. One is a rotter truck, like a sewer snake, that they keep the lines clean. We also run a closed circuit television camera through every pipeline. We go through our system. The big pipelines we're reviewing on a 5-year cycle, so we keep an eye. And of course, if we find a problem area, we'll go back to it more frequently until something bad happens that has to be fixed, or before something bad happens, we'll fix it. But we keep an eye on it as it's deteriorating over time. And then the smaller pipelines, starting from the houses on, are basically every over a 10-year cycle, and we keep tremendous archives and records, and we have people that review it, and we rate the condition of the pipe. And as it's getting worse, we can see how fast it's deteriorating and put it on a schedule. Of course, obviously, you want to clean it and keep it functioning, but when it does reach a point that pipes start to wear out and it needs the help, primarily are using cured in place pipe, and that's where you put this synthetic material like a sock. You blow it through the section of pipe you're repairing, and then they blow air in it to make it form to the pipe, and then they cure it primarily with ultraviolet light. A very short time, you now have an inner liner that's better than the original pipe.
How about
very smooth, and it lasts for 50 more years. But if something is really bad, where it's so broken and deteriorated, we do have to do point repairs occasionally, where you have to dig up things and go in there and put in a new section of pipe.
Well, just maintaining the system, as you've described, has got to be a significant chunk of the work of the team in your department. But what are some of the programs or services that you offer to our constituents?
Well, first of all, our goal is to be a good neighbor. Of course, we have that job of dealing with sewage and taking care of it, but making it safe for the community and for our workers is the goal that we achieve, and producing the 3 reusable materials at the end of it. But most of our focus is on, let's make sure we don't have odors. We have a lot of effort to go at odors, so we're a good neighbor in the community. And the same with roaches. We have a very intense vector program where we put a paint. We spray paint every manhole. And we have, I think, 75,000 manholes.
My goodness.
And we paint them on a 2-year cycle, because when you paint them, the paint is infused with an insecticide, and it helps keep the roach population in control. Anytime somebody has an odor or a roach issue, they let us know. It's not like we're like, dang, quit complaining. It's actually more information for us, because if there's a problem, maybe there's something wrong with our sewer, and we can go spend some attention and use CCTV and take a look. And if there's a problem, we'll fix it. But not every roach and not every odor is Pima County Wastewaters, but we do take those seriously, and so we're available for the community if they need that help. Also, because always we know that, we're very conscientious about, our customers are providing the money to perform this service, and we take that seriously. We want to be good financial stewards of the money that we get. And so we have a program for low income. We have a sewer outreach subsidy, and it actually is a 4-tier program where, if you're at the federal poverty level, or I think it's 20% above that, or 40% above it, or 60% above it, you can get a 80, a 60, a 40, or a 20% discount on your sewer bill. So kind of the inverse of those values. But bottom line is we don't want to be unaffordable for our community, and our current rates are well below the national average. So that's a good thing. But we do help financially with that program, and it's on our webpage if anybody wanted to look it up. We also have another one that maybe people don't know as much about is the county sewers, or the public sewers, that 3,500 miles I refer to. They do not include your sewer from your specific house to our public sewer. Mostly the public sewers run like down the street or an alley or somewhere in a common area. And the line that connects your house to that pipe, that's the homeowner's responsibility. Right. And so you need to kind of pay attention to it, and, every so many years maybe rot it out or have it inspected. But in some cases, because many of those, we call it the home sewer connection, an HCS pipe, many of them, because they run under a sidewalk or a curb or an asphalt roadway, we know that it's going to be pretty expensive if a homeowner had to go dig up a problem in the road, because they're going to have to replace the paved road and the curb and or the sidewalk. So if somebody has a problem, not from their own fault, that's out in the public right of way, we will take care of that repair. We'll go do that. We won't repair it in your yard or but if it's in the public right of way and it's not their fault that it's damaged, we will fix that. And that's another benefit that we provide.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground, but what I always like to ask to wrap up these interviews is, was there anything new or exciting within your department that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure our listeners and viewers hear about?
We're, the Pima County Wastewater Department, we're very focused on efficiencies and being, creating a safe and healthy environment for people that live here, making sure we're good neighbors without roaches and odors, and not being a financial burden for them. So we focus on a lot of things now, where we've moved a little bit more into not the cutting edge, but we do embrace technology more to help improve our efficiencies, our performance, and we've put in a number of new processes. We do research also. Like, I'm sure most of your listeners have heard of the PFAS issue.
Yes.
And a lot of water companies are having to deal with it because PFAS is in the environment over the years for different things. And many of those PFAS chemicals are now banned or outlawed. We don't have the long chain PFAS items that were like airplane firefighting foam and stuff. They've changed that up. So in the environment, the amount of PFAS is decreasing, but water companies either have to treat for PFAS or they have to shut down wells if they don't have the ability to treat for it. And so we may have to do that as well, potentially, but I know that we have a very low amount of PFAS coming into the plant. And right now we haven't had to treat for it, but it's something that we keep an eye on. And we know that the way it's treated is a carbon filtering is primarily one of the main methods, pretty simple technology. But we just worked with the University of Arizona on a research project it's called foam fractionization, and it concentrates the PFAS in a much smaller volume. Wow. So it's very easy and a lot less expensive to treat. So if we have to do it, we're going to be there. But we also are embracing artificial intelligence, a good or bad word out there. But we're going to use it. We are starting to use it to help us optimize our electrical use and our chemical use. And it's a pretty powerful tool that will make us better at what we do and more cost efficient and performance efficient. And I'm going to take this opportunity to give you the best tip of the day for the listeners out there.
All right.
Just if anybody isn't aware of how your sewer bill is determined, we use a method called winter quarter average. I can't measure how much flow each house discharged to the sewer. It's not technically possible. Those are 4-inch lines with sporadic flow, and it's nearly impossible. If it's a big pipeline with good flow, there's technology to do that. That's not for a typical home connection. And so the closest we can get, and many wastewater utilities across the country use winter quarter average. And basically, we take the water data from all of our customers, and during the winter quarter months, which are primarily December, January, and February, our historic data shows that that's the lowest water use because most people are having with the high evaporation of their swimming pool, or aren't watering as much on the outside landscaping and stuff. And so water use is very low then. And so that number is averaged and multiplied times the formula to come up with the monthly sewer bill. And you're going to pay that for 12 months until the next winter quarter average is calculated. And every July, then the value changes. If your winter quarter average changes, your rate will change. If it goes up, your rate's going to go up. If it goes down, your rate will go down. And so it's a good point for people to pay attention to their winter quarter average, especially in those 3 months, and minimize their watering or any unnecessary use of water at that time. And their sewer bill will be the lowest it can be for a 12-month period.
All right. Well, thank you for that insider tip on how people can lower their bills. Jackson, I can't thank you enough for your 16 years of leadership of the department and your passion and your dedication for things that people take for granted. But boy, the minute you start taking them for granted, we're going to be in big trouble.
Well, thank you for that, and I always appreciate the chance to share what we do with the public. So,
all right, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All right. And thank you all for tuning in or listening.